Donald Trump pledges to do a lot of things and then fails to do them. Tonight we can report that's largely what happened with these mass ICE raids that Trump has now been pledging since mid-June. When they didn't happen the first time, Trump and his staff re-upped the threat this past weekend, saying this time they were really serious.
It starts on Sunday, and they're going to take people out, and they're going to bring them back to their countries, or they're going to take criminals out, put them in prison.
They're absolutely going to happen. There's approximately 1 million people in this country with removal orders. Of course, that isn't what ICE will go after in this, but that's the pool of people who've been all the way through the due process chain.
Those threats drew extensive coverage as people braced for mass raids.
At least 10 major cities across the U.S. are bracing for sweeping raids.
Local immigrant rights groups are preparing for possible ICE raids as early as this weekend.
The Trump administration putting undocumented immigrants on notice. Deportation raids will begin this next Sunday.
ICE is ready to go. This is intended to be a massive show of force against America's undocumented immigrants.
A lot of headlines, but there was no massive show after Trump's talk of millions, then reports of targeting maybe 2,000 migrants. Today's New York Times, you see right here, reports ICE actually made a handful of arrests that appear to take place. Similar headlines in the Wall Street Journal reporting that Trump's promised mass raids failed to materialize. It's been a month straight of this, Trump hyping mass raids that don't happen. And now they're trying to change the subject on this first day since the mass raids didn't happen. Now, we're not suggesting this administration is totally inactive on immigration. It has done plenty of things, many inhumane, some illegal, on this score. But on this particular threat of these mass raids, the administration has now been busted, and it seems more interested in fear and hype than in executing these pledged mass raids. For this conversation, I want to bring in some real experts. Former Border Patrol agent Jen Budd served in San Diego for 6 years before leaving the force and has been critical of what she saw. Paola Ramos is the host of Vice's Latinx and also worked on the Clinton campaign. Jen, you have been very clear about some of what you see as what's wrong with these policies on the ground. But what is the indication in your view, and what should we come to understand as this gap between Donald Trump's tweets and hype and what's actually happening on the ground?
You know, I think you're right in that he likes to use this as a fear tool. He likes his base to get riled up. He likes immigrants to live in fear. He likes to see people desperately tweeting or on Facebook offering advice to immigrants about what they should do to protect themselves and their families. And I understand why they would be fearful, and I think that they should take precautions. But so far, all we've seen is just a bunch of smoke and no fire in this.
And so in your experience, then, how does that play over the long run within DHS and the places that actually do the work? Because they must see what we slowly find out through original reporting, but they must see it on the front lines that there's a big gap between Donald Trump's, as you put it, fear tactics and their daily jobs.
Well, yeah, I think the agents themselves would probably like to be going out and doing this type of enforcement. They think that this is important. And I think so they would just see that he's maybe a politician, just like the ones in the past that promised that they were going to be tough on immigration, and then they really aren't.
Paola, I want to read from some of the reporting from the Wall Street Journal on this, because it speaks to how everyone can understand what may come next if they keep on with the same tactics. Other White House officials, this is pretty good sourcing, say ICE doesn't even have the capacity to process large-scale arrestees and said there was, quote, never a plan for such an operation. Paola?
Exactly. The point is that it wasn't just about the raids. The point was to create exactly this, which was terror. All he wanted to do was to terrorize a country, and that's what he did, right? Because I think if you're a policymaker, the first question you always ask yourself is, what is your measure of success, right? And when you look at these raids, when you look at this plan, you ask yourself, does this make the country safer? It does not. Does this deter more migrants from coming to this country? It will not. Does this fix the problem at the border? It does not. What does it do? It creates terror. It creates chaos. That's what it does.
And so, Paola, how do you look at this, given your expertise in this field, where on the one hand, there's all this real stuff that we report on, that we mention, including the treatment of people at the border, the way that children are being separated from their parents, all that stuff, which is very real. And then the other part, which is clearly designed to do something. It sounds like a criticism to say this, but what we're seeing as the months drag on is it's almost like a programming style approach to aspects of DHS, which I think would certainly be unethical if you could prove that the administration is doing things, as you say, to scare and program and not for their duty to uphold the Constitution.
And I will add, it's not just doing this to create terror. He's also doing this as his 2020 campaign platform, right? He's doing this to send a message to his base, which is, I promised you that brown people and black people do not belong in this country, and this is what I intend to do. Obviously, he's inept, so that's another conversation. But at the end of the day, the most important thing that we did see this weekend, with or without raids, with or without deportations, we saw that the community is prepared. We saw that the community is informed of their rights, and that's because of the activists that it doesn't matter what Trump says or does not say, they are educating the immigrant community every single day and informing them of their rights, and that is what we saw.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.